Anthony Hopkins was born in the Welsh town of Port Talbot, just like the man who inspired him to become an actor, Richard Burton. He struggled at school, but in his 20s was understudying Laurence Olivier at the National Theatre, and in his 30s was a major television star thanks to a BBC adaptation of War and Peace. Hopkins would be called the best stage actor of his generation, but fell increasingly in love with film and out of love with the theatre, famously walking out of a 1973 production of Macbeth midway through its run.
You got big roles at the National, Coriolanus, and then the big walkout from Macbeth.
Oh, yes. My bad years.
Why were they bad years?
I was a bad boy. I was trouble. I was rebel. I was discontented. I was angry and fed up and hated being part of an establishment and hated doing Shakespeare. It was all my own making. I was the enemy within, you know. It was all my own making. It was nobody else's fault. Everyone did their best to, you know, cater to my needs.
Were you drinking at that time?
Oh, yes, but all actors drink. That was just an episode in my life. That's over and done with. That's a boring episode of life. But I don't think it helped. But I was restless. I wanted to get out, and I was frightened. I was afraid. I was taking on this monumental part, and I never pretended that I had the courage to do these great parts like Macbeth and King Lear. I never said I could do them. I never thought I had the courage to do them. It takes a lot of courage to do them. And I didn't have that. I didn't have the sustaining power. I didn't have the discipline to learn verse, and I just couldn't get it. And it got from bad to worse, and I think I reached a crisis of nerves. I lost my nerve, and I just, one day, walked out because I couldn't, the screaming voice of John Dexter. One day I thought, that's it, I'm off. And I got on the bus and left, and I never looked back. I'm not proud of any of that, but I'm glad I did it. I made my amends. I wrote back to Olivia and said, you know, I'm sorry I did that, but I had to go. And no regrets, no shame about that. It's over and done with. And, but I had to do it, otherwise I would have gone mad.
Anthony Hopkins didn't just leave Macbeth. He left Britain and spent years living in America, carving out a career as a movie star.
How did you get into films rather than the theatre? Your first film, of course, was The Lion in Winter, wasn't it?
Yes. How? Well, I'll make a startling admission. I mean, I came to a startling conclusion a few months ago that I really always wanted to do films, and I'd spent so much time doing what I thought other people expected me to do, you know, and I think we tend to do that a lot of the time. And I made up my mind a few months ago that I really enjoy films. I have a marvelous time. I love filming and I love television, and I like the theatre, but. And I'm sure I will go back to the theatre, but I don't know, I hate it when it goes wrong, and you just have to go on stage night after night after night when it's wrong, when it's been badly conceived. And I've had a couple of negative experiences that way in recent years. I'm pretty firm the way I work now, and I'll have a talk with the director before we start, asking him how he works, and I'll tell him how I work. And I expect him to do his homework, as I'm expected to do mine. Before I used to politely stand there and take it, you know, and take nonsense. Now I don't do it, because it's my job, and if I'm not satisfied, I walk away. And I will always walk away if I'm not satisfied, because I don't see why I should put myself through the mill for the sake of incompetence. And I don't. It's probably very offensive to some people, but they probably don't like it. But I had an experience recently over the last 2.5 years. I won't mention names, and I won't mention the play, but it was a nightmare. I mean, a director who hadn't prepared a thing. And it was a big play, and 2 weeks rehearsal. I don't want to go over old ground, but I made the mistake of being politely accepting this man's incompetence, until it was too late, and then I blew up. There was an enormous explosion. So now I've learned from that lesson, hopefully, not to put up with it, and to be honest, because it's only dishonesty that allows one to put up with nonsense and incompetence. So I maybe it sounds terribly pompous, but I just say, no, I won't put up with it. You know, I'm not going to do that.
When you left Britain after your years in the National Theatre, did people accuse you of deserting British theatre, of selling out really to money and to stardom?
Yes. I suppose I have sold out. And whatever it means. No. I suppose I'm going through a kind of period of change in myself. I don't know. I find it more important for me to enjoy my life, to get on with my life, my living. Aside from work, I found that nose to the grindstone attitude in the theatre all the time, taking everything so seriously, was making me, in a way, I don't know, I suppose uptight and neurotic, and I left the theatre and I went off to Israel, and I did a film QB7, and I went off to America, and I feel more at ease, I feel more confident in myself, I just feel happier than I've ever been, because there's no panic. I'm not, if I do Othello, I hope I do it well, of course. I haven't the great need to play Shakespeare, I haven't the great need to do classics, I have no great need or urgency to do Ibsen or play, Sophocles or whatever. If I play it, and if I don't, I don't. It's a very good opportunity for me to play Othello. I feel free. And I didn't in the theatre, I just didn't. So I suppose I've sold out. I just didn't feel free. I felt hemmed in and cooped up. Maybe I don't have the nature or the discipline. I got bored very quickly.
To fight that propensity for boredom, Hopkins has taken on roles that are intense and challenging. One such example was the schizophrenic ventriloquist in Richard Attenborough's 1978 film Magic.
A very chilling film, as I said. In fact, what's remarkable about it was you did your own vent work in that, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Who taught you?
There's a man called Dennis Allwood in America, and a man called Michael Bailey taught me the magic tricks. I only learned a few, but he taught me the basics.
What about the vent, though, first of all? How difficult is it to throw your voice like that, without moving your lips, as they say?
Well, I found it fairly easy, maybe because I'm an actor and, you have to keep your voice flexible. And I was willing to learn, and I decided that the only way I could do it was to, enjoy it. And I've been a mimic as well, so I found it fairly easy. And I had a good teacher. Maybe I was a good student.
Can you still do it?
Yes, so,
Like that what?
Yes, I can. Hi, Michael, how are you doing? Good to see you. Hi, gang. You okay? Fantastic.
What are the words you can't say?
Bottle of beer. That's the classic one.
Yeah.
Daddle a deer, daddle a deer, daddle a deer. It's the P sounds and F sounds and B sounds, all those plosive sounds.
Yes.
You have to use the lips. So you translate them into F sound is. So you're saying, instead of fantastic, fantastic.
And what about the tricks, the little sort of magic tricks that you had to learn? Because the guy, in fact, did a magic act as well as the vent act in the movie, didn't he?
Yes. Well, Michael Bailey taught me the basic magic, because I couldn't handle cards, so he taught me one-hand shuffles and cuts, and also the fanning and a coin trick, which is basically, this is a classic, which is called the French drop, and it's that's, so you see, and there it is. But those are the basics. I enjoyed learning them. I play the piano, so I'm able to. Yes. Oh, I can still do it.
Yeah. Now, you had to learn You mentioned there that it was all made easier for you because you've had this gift of mimicry.
Yes.
Now, have you always had this, have you?
Ever since I was a little kid, yes.
You used to take up what, school teachers?
School teachers. It was my only sort of weapon, really, because I was not too sharp at school. I didn't like authority, especially school teachers, so I always had to go at them through mimicry. And then later on, when I became an actor, I always had to go at directors, so I used to be a very good mimic. Sometimes directors I wasn't too happy with.
You used it as a weapon, did you?
I used to, but no, I use it out of affection now.
You do?
And yes.
You do. It's been said of you that, in fact, you're one of the best mimics, actually, in the business. And you specialise in doing the acting nights, don't you?
Yes.
Yes. Are you going to do...
Which one do you want?
I love mimics. Well, let's start with... well, everybody does Gielgud, don't they?
Oh, yes. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more.
What about Olivier doing the same one?
To be or not to be. that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. To die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh has aired.
What about... Can you do one of my favourites, Sir Ralph?
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them.
That's brilliant. One you proffered, actually, before we came on, that was, which I've not heard, James Mason.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles. I have a lot of fun.
Can you pick up like a tape recorder, Tony?
Yes,
You find you can play back most people, do you, to them?
Yeah, well, what do you mean? Do I have to listen or study?
Yes.
No, they come by accident. Or sometimes listening to somebody else who may sound like... I remember Michael York, who sounds a little bit like James Mason. I got it by listening to Michael, and I got the James Mason through him. Or, you know, the Alec Guinness... Actually, I was reading a preface in a book about Alec Guinness had written, and suddenly his voice came to me. And suddenly it all sounded rather like that, you know, and... Tinker's Tailor Soldier's Spy. No, but so I got the Alec Guinness as well.
Yeah.
I didn't know how they come there.
Yeah.
I use them as fun. I use them out of affection now. I don't use them out of...
Yes. You're over here now, you're making a film which we won't see for a year or so called The Elephant Man, which is a rather strange story. Would you tell us about it?
Yes, basically it's a very touching story about a man called John Merrick, who was so seriously deformed, I don't know what the nature of his disease was, but he had a very large head and the one side of his body totally deformed, and he was a sideshow freak, and he was cruelly beaten and treated very badly. He was born like this, and the part I play is Dr. Frederick Treves, and Treves found him in the circus, in the sideshow, and took him back to the London hospital and kept him there, and he met tremendous opposition from the Board of Governors of the hospital. But John Merrick could speak and he could read and he could write, and he became a centerpiece for society in London. This is about the 1880s, and Princess Alexandra visited him, and Queen Victoria sent a telegram to Treves congratulating him on his humanitarianism, and Merrick died, I think, in his 20s. He suffocated, really. He couldn't sleep on his back because of the weight of the head, so he used to sleep sitting up. It really is a tremendous script. It's one of the best ones I've ever. It's a very touching story.
One of Hopkins' biggest films after The Elephant Man involved another intense character, Captain Bligh in The Bounty.
Bligh wasn't the sadistic monster that Charles Laughton brilliantly created. But he was a great seaman, a great navigator. He was Cook's navigator on the Pacific voyages. Bad-tempered, no sense of...
The part turned Hopkins from a star into a superstar. His mesmerising performance won him that year's Oscar for the Best Leading Actor, and the very next day he made this appearance on The Wogan Show.
Welcome live from the St. James's Club, LA, cuddly cannibal, Anthony Hopkins. Anthony, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you, Terry.
Now, I haven't seen the movie, but were you good?
I was okay. What do you mean you haven't seen it? You haven't seen
I read the book. I read the book. Were you good in that?
You did? I was good in the book.
Good
Not so good in the film. In the book, I was terrific.
Yeah. How do you feel this morning?
Well, still baffled. Still, I'm coming down off cloud 9 a bit now. I'm just feeling. I still can't believe it that I got this thing. It's a wonderful honour. I'm looking forward to coming home back to England. I was astounded at the Oscar ceremony when they called my name. I thought they were going to call Nick Nolte, you know. So it was a heady experience. It was like a dream. I knew I was going to wake up any minute. And I didn't know what to say to anyone. I didn't know who to thank, and it all went out of my head.
Have you spoken to your mum yet?
Yeah, I phoned her. I phoned her from the academy, from the press room. And she was staying with some friends of ours, Eve and Jean Williams and Jill and Tony. And I phoned her, and I think they were all sipping the champagne and getting really, truly plastered, I believe. I think they were all sort of over the moon. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just out in left field. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just sort of stunned by it all. I really didn't expect it. Although during the ceremony, when Billy Crystal was making those kind of comments, you know, and coming in with a mask dressed as Hannibal Lecter, I wondered if I had a better chance, and I still said no. They'll give it to Nick Nolte, who's a wonderful actor. But I'm glad they gave it to me anyway.
Yeah. What's that you've got on the table in front of you?
This is what, the orange juice of the that's the Oscar.
Yeah.
That's the Oscar.
Be careful now, because I understand that they're cheaply made and it'll chip if you let it drop.
Yes, you just have it bends, you know. No, it's a great piece of work actually. It's very heavy. It's very heavy.
It hasn't been a bad year for you. I mean, you got the BAFTA awards the other weekend, and now you've got this.
I didn't expect that either.
Yeah. I think the reason you didn't expect it, presumably, was in all modesty, is because you're the third Briton in succession to actually win the Oscar for Best Actor. Daniel Day-Lewis, and then last year Jeremy Irons, and now you. I mean, that's the unexpected element, isn't it?
Well, it just goes to show so much for, you know, it's the tremendous generosity of America. They are most generous people one could imagine. You know, they don't seem to hold their punches. When they want you to have something, they'll give it to you. I think it's fantastic. You know, they know no bounds with generosity. And of course I expected it maybe a slightly political thing that they would give it to an American. But when they gave it to me, I was so shocked. And that shows how generous the Americans are. They're amazing people. And they were encouraging me right the way through, you know, saying, you're going to get it, you're going to get it. I said, don't tell me that. They said, you're going to get it, we want you to get it. I mean, they're amazing people.
I think
it's a great privilege being here.
It's all the more remarkable in view of the fact that the film was released in America before last year's Oscars ceremony, so one would have thought that no matter how good it was, they would have forgotten about it.
Yeah, well, I guess that goes with the nature of the book, because it's a brilliantly written book, and Ted Talley's amazing screenplay, and then you get a combination like Jonathan Demme as a director, and you put a couple of people like me on. The actors sort of showed up and did their bit, you know. But it was when you get a good script, like Ted Talley's screenplay, based on a sensational book, you know that you have a good chance of it being a good success. It doesn't always work, but I sensed that it was going to be a big box office hit because the book was such a top bestseller, and so we had a good combination going in. But you know, you can always make mistakes. But I'm glad it proved to be a very successful film. And I'm glad to be sitting here with Mr. Oscar. And I never imagined I'd have one of these.
Can you explain how the character of Hannibal Lecter, such a character, manages to hold such a sway on the public's imagination, even the Academy voters' imagination or memory over such a long period?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't have any psychological theories about it, but I think what it is, in the old Beauty and the Beast syndrome, or the old Beauty and the Beast theme, I mean, he's a man who has a potential for love, strangely enough, in his own dark way, in his own strange way. And yet he's a man who's trapped in a monstrous brain, like Quasimodo was trapped in a deformed and tragic body. And I think Hannibal Lecter is trapped in this distorted and extraordinary mind and will never be able to get out of it. But he has a human capacity for understanding, a tremendous capacity for understanding, and he understands Clarice Starling, Jodie Foster. And when she confronts him, I think he admires her and he loves her in a way, and he would never harm her if he ever got out. But you can't let this man out because he's a lethal killing machine. And I guess that's something that maybe an audience recognizes, or in the book that made him so popular, because there is that potential there, hidden deep down. And I suppose audiences or readers respond deep in themselves in a way. I don't want to make it sound heavy going, but I think that's what it is. As you asked me, that's my theory.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons that I'm interviewing you so far away is because, quite frankly, after that movie, I'm fairly apprehensive of you. And I imagine that most people wouldn't really want to sit beside you at dinner, would they?
No, they all get up and leave. When I go into a restaurant, people just get up and leave. No, it's people don't respond in any different way. I tell them I'm a vegetarian.
What about a sequel? Is there a sequel planned to this? Surely there must be.
Well, Thomas Harris is writing the book now, I believe, so they tell me, and Jonathan Demme is waiting with bated breath for the screenplay and the book to come out, and Jodie Foster said to me that we've got to do the second one, so I hope we do. I don't know where it's going to take place or what shape the story is going to be, but it would be interesting to do it again. I hope in the not-too-distant future, and then I think that's it. I don't want to go on playing men like this, but I mean, it was the highlight of my acting life, I suppose, to get a part like that. When I read it, I thought this is a sensational part of a lifetime. And I'd like to have one more crack at him, you know.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm sure it will be a few days more before the full realization sets in to you. Do enjoy the enormous success. I'm sure every producer in Hollywood's beaten a path to your door. We wish you continued success. And of course, the congratulations of everybody here to Anthony Hopkins.
Thank you, Terry.
Howard's End and how he got into his part also came up in this Barry Norman interview from 1993, a year that saw the release of two of Hopkins' best-loved films, The Remains of the Day and Shadowlands.
Let's have a look at another film that one of your more recent ones, Howard's End. How did you get a handle on the character you played in that?
It was the moustache did it.
Ah.
Yeah. So I went to the makeup room and they said, would you wear a moustache in this? I said, well, I haven't grown one. No. She said, well, I've got one for you. I said, okay, well, let's put it on and put it on. And I said, there's the man. And it made me feel like my grandfather, my father's father, was a strict Victorian. And I looked at it in the mirror and I thought, that's him. And it did something to my eyes. It did something to my face. It gave it a sort of edge and it made my eyes stand out. I thought, this man is a ruthless man and he's a tough man. And I could see him in the dark suit. So I didn't have to do much work on...
Is it true that before you actually go on the set for the first day's filming, you will probably have read the script up to 150 times?
Yeah.
You must know everybody's part then, not just yours.
Yes. More or less. What I do is I take the scenes and I go over them and over them and over them. I sometimes go over them 200 times. It sounds obsessive, but it is a bit obsessive. And I'll go over a scene loud. Once I know it, it's like putting a cake in the oven and letting it bake. And I hope that in that process that I'll be physically relaxed enough so that when they say action or, you know, let's go to rehearse or whatever, the part will flow through me in some way.
What about this understated sexuality of yours that I keep reading about? Do you notice it? Does your wife notice it?
Understated?
Sexuality. Every time I read a profile of you, it talks about Hopkins' understated sexuality. I'm deeply envious of it. I mean, where does it come from?
I've never heard of it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I laugh because I think, yeah, I'm a bandy-legged, balding Welshman, you know, and I don't feel at all sexy. I'm told that some of the ladies like me. I don't know what to say. I blush a bit.
Yeah,
my wife says if they could only see you first thing in the morning. But no, I don't know. You know, I mustn't take myself too seriously. It's very pleasant.
Yes, yes.
But is that what they say?
That's what they say.
Oh,
yes. Oh. Yeah, there you go. The new film, the one we're about to see soon, Remains of the Day, which I think is in many ways the best role you've had because you dominate that film. You're in practically every scene. I mean, it's really a film about wasted lives in a way, isn't it?
It's about all our lives, really, isn't it? About every human being, you know, how we hold ourselves back from the real abundance of life.
I have a feeling that you might reach another milestone with another Oscar nomination for Remains of the Day.
You think so?
Yeah.
I'll have to sort of divorce it out of my... You really?
Yeah.
Oh, well... Oh, you know, I suppose so, I know. I don't know. It'd be very nice.
Yeah,
I
it would
dare
be
not
nice.
think about it. I dare not think about it.
You've also got Shadowlands coming up soon.
Shadowlands,
Yeah.
yes.
So they're keeping you very busy, or you're keeping yourself
I'm
very
keeping
busy.
myself busy. Keeps me off the streets, keeps me out of trouble,
Keeps me out of the bars.
Well, long may all this prevail.
The Remains of the Day did result in another Oscar nomination, which, as with all the plaudits he was receiving, Hopkins found hugely satisfying.
Did you want to be a great success?
Yeah.
You are a great success.
Yes.
How has that changed you?
It hasn't changed me at all. I've got more confidence in myself. Yeah, when I started out, I just wanted to be famous. I didn't want to become a great actor. I didn't want to become a great Shakespearean actor. I had no idea. People say you're the next Olivier. I didn't want to become the next Olivier. I didn't want to stand in wrinkled tights on the Old Vic stage for the rest of my life. I had ideas beyond that. Some people would call it arrogant and ambitious. I'm all those things. I'm very ambitious. It hasn't changed me, except I've faced up to the honesty and saying this is what I always wanted. I remember once I was working with Emma Thompson and we did Remains of the Day, I think it was, and or maybe Howard's End. And she read an interview when I'd said in the magazine, I said all I ever wanted to be was rich and famous. I think the interview that day I was being rather, bad boy, and I said, no, I didn't want to become a classical actor. I wanted to become rich and famous. And Emma said to me a few days later when she read this in this magazine on the paper, she said, oh, that's not true, is it, darling? I said, yes, it was absolutely true. She said, well, I can't believe that about you. I mean, aren't you interested in the art? I said, no, not at all. I want to get on fast planes. As Muggeridge once said, you go up and down the world like the devil and one day you have to come home. Well, maybe one day I will come home. But for the moment, I'm just enjoying the actual movement of my life.
But though he was enjoying himself, Hopkins was also, as ever, looking to avoid complacency and find his next creative challenge.
If you're talking about Remains of the Day, it was a very simple, straightforward part for me to play because I'm good at that containment now. I've mastered, I suppose. I'm a very experienced actor. I've been around doing it for a number of years, and I've learned a few tricks here and there. So I know how to contain a performance, and like Shadowlands or what is it?
Are those techniques that work better on film than on the stage?
I think they work on. I think they can work on stage. On film, you have an ideal opportunity to do less and create more. In fact, by doing less. And it's fairly straightforward. This is a very straightforward process. I really do. I mean, I say that I work very hard. I mean, I do a lot of study. I do a lot of research, do a lot of reading, and a lot of learning of the text, of the lines, whatever you want to call it. But once I'm ready, I feel very relaxed, and I enjoy it. And I'm detached in a way, especially on film, because you have. And I'm in control, and I enjoy the control. I enjoy being master of the technique. I enjoy being master of the performance. But I keep it very light. But now I'm reaching a stage where I want to give up that contained, a quiet, passionless person. I now want to break out and do something big and boisterous and dangerous again. Because I know that that's all still in me, cooking around, and it's time to move on. And that's what I want to do.
Hopkins found his big, boisterous character in the next Oscar-nominated performance in the title role in Oliver Stone's 1996 film, Nixon.
First, the most obvious question is, why did Oliver Stone choose you to play Nixon? It's in a sense, it's a bit like getting Paul Newman to play Harold Macmillan. Maybe a good choice, but not an obvious one. Why?
I've asked myself that question a lot since. He'd seen Remains of the Day and Shadowlands and some of my work. He'd read a few interviews of mine. Those rather boring interviews where they talk about my drinking years and my pain and all that. And I think he thought that I'd been through the mill a bit. And he thought the work in Remains of the Day was really good, playing repressed men, which I've been associated with. And for some reason, I don't know why he didn't think about the British accent and the lack of Americanism in me, or because I'm a British actor. And he said something about being Welsh. Now, I don't know how much Oliver knows about Welsh people, but he said there was something dark about me and being the outsider. Whatever the combination was, he wanted to cast me, and I
I didn't play hard to get, but I did question him. I said, you are aware, you know, I'm not an American, and it's no easy task to get into an American rhythm of speech. Nevertheless, he said, well, he said, I think you can do it. And he said, I want you to do it. He said, it's up to you. He said, but the part's yours if you want it. He said, I'll give you some time to think about it. And I thought, well, there's a chance to work with a really great director, of today's modern cinema. And I'd be a fool to turn it down. I'd regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't. I may fall flat on my face. I've done the film, I may still yet fall flat on my face. But I needed that challenge because I'd become a little complacent, very complacent in fact. I was playing parts that were easy for me, like Remains of the Day, Shadowlands, they were dead easy parts.
Is it true, as I've heard, that the clincher was that Stone said to you, if you don't play it, I'm going to offer it to Gary Oldman?
Yes, it was. Well, Oliver's a sort of demon, really. He said, well, you've got a choice. You can go off and make those boring films that you usually make, which nobody goes to see, meaning some, I don't know, Czechoslovak film, which I've done one or two of those. And he said, yeah, because I'm still undecided. He said, yeah. He said, do you think Gary Oldman would be good? I said, I'll do it.
You were quoted a couple of years ago as saying that it wouldn't bother you if you never acted again. Was that? Did you actually say that?
I think I was going through one of my phases. I go through phases.
The lonely melancholy
yes,
phase.
Yes, I don't want to act anymore. I think actors say that in order to get a bit of sympathy, so you can't think what we're losing. And I think somebody might have said to me, well, why not? Okay, fine, you know. I wouldn't have liked that. I love the cinema because it's, I love it. I love the whole feeling of it, getting up in the morning, going to the dressing room, makeup on. I love the routine, I love the excitement of it. I love the circus atmosphere. Hitting the road. At the end of the wrap party, saying, bye, see ya, adios amigos, and get in the car and back into the night and on to my next... It's like life. It's like a life and a death. And there's something very impersonal about it. I think there's something so exciting about it. There's something about life in that. Life and death, you know, the long goodbyes, and it's over and done with.
Since 1993, Hopkins has been Sir Anthony, deservedly joining the ranks of the acting knights he'd been mimicking for so many years. And his passion for cinema continues to this day. Whether in crowd-pleasing blockbusters or intimate labours of love, Hopkins still has an appetite for a challenge that's as impressive as that of his most famous creation.